over the course of this format. Much more of a board control oriented deck than some of the decks like, you know, Bant or other control decks we've seen earlier on. Selivera is going to start here with a Borderland Ranger on the 3rd turn, getting a mountain. Bryan untaps with his 2 cemeteries.
We'll see what he's going to be able to come up with in his mid-range deck. I know you have Bryan's deck list in front of you. I mean, just mostly good stuff. You know, Olivia, stuff like that in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a Rakdos Key Rune. It has Bonfire, Farseek, Key Rune, Searing Spear, Sever, Ultimate Price, and Garruk Primal Hunter. So very anti-creature.
Okay.
This deck's got, you know, Nighthawk, Thorax Tusk, Olivia. These are all awesome threats against creature decks.
Well, that's what he's facing right now as we see Hellrider coming across the Borderland Ranger. 2 triggers from the Hellrider. Gonna knock Bryan down to 18, plus 5 damage. Gonna knock him down to 13. And Andres is on the attack right now. And obviously this Jund mid-range deck is incredibly good against creatures.
Yep.
And we're already at the 4 mana point. A 4th land would give him 5 mana. We could see our first Thragtusk of the match here, as I know Andres has 4 in his deck list, and Bryan has 4 in his as well. So we're going to probably see some Thragtusk back and forth within these 2 or 3 games.
Right, it's pretty impressive if Bryan wins this game on the draw, with his first play being a Rakdos Key Rune.
Yeah.
You know, that would speak very highly about this deck's efficiency against creature decks.
Now we are going to see a Farseek here from Bryan. Going to fix that mana out, get himself a Blood Crypt so he has more sources of red mana. Be able to activate that Rakdos Key Rune if necessary moving forward.
Attention players in $10 draft number 8. Your event is ready up here inside.
Let's see another Woodland Cemetery coming to play on tap.
Has fired.
I can't imagine that Hellrider is long for this world.
Well, I mean, he might be just say, I don't believe, you know, you can attack through this Key Rune here. Oh, he doesn't even have red.
Yeah, so we're gonna.
Oh, okay, here we go.
So we're gonna see a Wolfir Silverheart here. We'll see what Andres is gonna pair it up with. Safest one to pair it up with is the Borderland Ranger, but he's gonna take the risk. He's gonna pair it up there with the Hellrider. Hellrider's gonna go bye-bye.
There's an ultimate price, so sending in with just the Ranger.
And it's gonna knock Bryan down to 11. Swamp from Bryan. You're going to see a bit of an adjustment of mana here. You're going to see 4, and you're going to see Wolfir Silverheart, excuse me, hit Sever the Bloodline. And you can see Rakdos Key Rune being available to be activated here. So, bit of a problem here. Andres is, you know, a little, I wouldn't want to call it early aggression, but his aggression that he was putting forward has been stopped rather quickly.
So we're going to see an activation here.
Sends in there.
Just to get this Key Rune turned on, so I guess he can finish off with Museum Mortars.
Yep, and does that. And now you're going to see Huntmaster of the Fells. Okay. So, you know, a bit of a weird trade there, throwing away the Borderland Ranger, but I mean, if that's what it takes to get that Huntmaster through, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, and because he has Kessig Wolf Run in play, that Key Rune is potentially shutting down a lot of Andres' offense. So, and, you know, are you going to get a better spot with that Mortars, you know? So not a great looking trade, but making the best of a bad situation.
So we see Andres does not have a lot of cards left in his hand. I know there's a Devil's Play hanging out there. That might be the only card he does have left. Bryan doing a pretty nice job of stabilizing here as he does play a Cavern of Souls. We'll figure out what that's naming for you guys at home in just a moment. Let's see what he's going to follow that up with. You're just going to see Sever the Bloodline take care of the Huntmaster.
Yep, just flash back. And I think Andres is actually Cavern is on human there. Between the Devil's Play and the Wolf Run, he might just be able to finish him out from here.
Yeah, just, you know, fireball with the creature and then fireball through the sky. As you see, on his turn, Andres did just attack with the wolf, and then he was able to Wolf Run for 4. So actually gets in for 6.
There's an untapped Overgrown Tomb for Huntmaster, and maybe
back up to 5.
Severing the Wolf.
Yep.
So Devil's Play should...
I mean, Double Play does look to be a wrap here, and that's it. Fireball upstairs for all of my mana.
Yep.
So Andres, up a game.
Very quick. You know, Bryan's start was quite slow there. He was able to, you know, blunt the early offense, and that's, you know, pretty awesome to have Devil's Play in your list, because they were at a stage of the game where creatures were not going to be able to get it done. You know, Bryan was going to be able to lock up the board. He's drawing to so much spot removal in cards like Thragtusk. So that Devil's Play finishing a job that many creatures, even some of the more powerful ones like Thrytusk and Silverheart, might not have been able to finish.
And now taking a look here at the sideboards, I know you have Bryan's deck list in front of you. I mean, you would consider this to be, I would say it's in his favor. You just kind of got run down a little bit there, and then Devil's Play finished things off. Anything, in addition to all that removal and Thrytusk that he can board in?
He's got a Singleton Abrupt Decay. He's got a Garrick, another Sever, 2 Tragic Slips, and a Vraska. All that seemed good against me. All that seemed good to me, rather. Sorry. Vraska is a card that really got a lot of hype on release. Hasn't really made too much of an appearance yet, but against another green deck that's presenting, 4 and 5 mana threats, it's probably about as good as it's going to get.
Sure. Taking a look over here for Andres, I would not be surprised to see an additional Wolf or Silverheart come in to play here. If he thinks that things are going to get grindy, there are those 2 Staff Minions in the sideboard, which I wouldn't be surprised to see those come into play either, just overwhelming with the card advantage. Blast and Stack, the card that we saw Mark use to a lot of success, is not going to come in here. A couple of Ground Seals in the sideboard I don't foresee coming in. A 3rd Devil's Play, however, will probably join us, along with 2 more copies of Huntmaster of the Fells. So a couple cards that he can board in here. It doesn't really seem like Pillar of Flame is where you really want to be against the Jund deck. And Andres and Mark, the 2 players that are playing this deck, did have 4 Pillar of Flame's main decks, so those will probably be moving to the bench. But I think the rest of the cards are just going to stay here. In his main deck, he's going to board in a couple additional cards, and then just stick with his basic game plan. Because I feel like Patrick, he is the aggressor in this matchup.
Yeah, he can't really sideboard too much in, reactively against Bryan's deck, and he can at least take some solace in the fact that Bryan's deck's a little slow to get off the ground. So your curve of, mid-range creatures like Hell Rider into Devil's Play is not an easy game plan for Bryan to stabilize against. Bryan has a lot of pinpoint removal and cards like Searing Spear and Bonfire of the Damned that are very good at handling the cheap threats, but aren't necessarily good at answering all the expensive decks this deck can put out. And I think Devil's Play is a huge deal in this matchup.
Yeah, I agree. Just the reach that it provides, the fact that it's reusable because of flashback, it seems like the perfect card to really fight the Jund deck. It can take care, of Olivia on the front end, and then be able to, fire away for 3 or 4 damage on the back end with the flashback. So
yeah, you need some way to be able to close the game out when your creatures are no longer ready to go. Yeah, because a lot of these decks, the control decks, not just Jund, but also Bant, and the 4-color, the Reanimator decks, all that stuff. Once they get control, they lock up the ground. There's no more attacking to be done. Wolf Run gives you a little bit of action there, but Devil Play is much better in that role. Not to say that he shouldn't be playing Wolf Run. Obviously, it's great in this deck too. But it's just another line of attack that your conventional cards don't give you.
So we do see both players shuffling up here for game 2. Bryan will be on the play first. If you guys are just joining us, we are here in San Diego, SCG Live Open Series in San Diego. Patrick Sullivan, Cedric Phillips in the booth. Thank you guys for joining us very much. If you guys do want to join the conversation, of course you can join us on Twitter at SCG Live, hashtag SCGSD. We'll be giving away premium later today.
Yep.
We'll be having 9 rounds of standard today. We're through 5, doing number 6 right now. We've got some very good players in attendance. Ben Lundquist here, Mark Herberholtz, Mark Lalagu at Grand Prix Anaheim champion, and Joe Lissette, player from this area. So a lot of good Magic we've already watched.
Yep.
We'll be likely continue to feature a lot of good matches as well. We've got Ruben here in the sideboard having some fun features. We've got some artists here for you guys as well. Ruben is waving even though you can't see him.
He says hi.
He is here, we do promise. So a lot of fun here in what Patrick calls America's finest city.
I actually think that's what San Diego calls itself. Like, how Seattle is the Emerald City or
whatever. That's just cocky.
It may be true, though. It's sort of hard to deny.
You can't just say that. It's like giving yourself your own nickname.
People do that all the time, too.
You just can't do that. So we see both players drawing their opening 7 cards. Let's see if Bryan can find a 7 that he's happy to stay with here.
It's really noteworthy. I've seen a lot of Jund mid-range on camera, and since Return to Ravnica came out. I don't think I've ever seen it win. I think every match I've covered has just gotten donutted.
I haven't seen it win a lot. I can give you that much. That's for sure. We are going to see an overgrown tomb here. Both players keeping their 7. We have an Abundant Growth.
Yep.
From Andre drawing himself a card, drawing a Mysium Mortars.
I really like Abundant Growth in this deck because this deck's like very colored mana sensitive.
Yeah.
So a free cycler and lets him, be able to cast Strangleroot on turn 2 and overload Mizium Mortars on turn 6. It's not easy to get a deck to be able to do both things. Abundant Growth does that very well, and this deck's lacking turn 1 plays. So
we do see a Vampire Nighthawk here. We do know that Andre does have Mizium Mortars in his hand, and he is going to cast it. Get that Nighthawk right out of the way. Thank you very much. I can cast it because of Abundant Growth, and across for 2 we go. Patrick, illustrating your point perfectly.
Yeah, thanks. The perfect setup.
And it's funny, Bryan, the 3-color deck, he doesn't have red. Andre 2 Forest, but Abundant Growth saving the day.
Yep.
And we're going to see another Strangleroot Geist.
The risk here is, of course, sever the Bloodline.
The old Bloodline.
I don't think these Strangleroot guys aren't getting any better, and this is a good sign.
Yeah, this is a very good sign as we see ultimate price here. Taking out one of the Strangleroot Geist. Going to be a +1/+1 counter on there, so Bryan's going to move down 14. See if he's able to find a red mana or maybe a 5th land for a Thrag Tusk.
Yep. Just passes again.
Pass back. Andre draws his card. He draws a Kessig Wolf Run, so he'll be able to hit his 3rd land drop. In for 5 he comes, knocking Bryan down to 9.
What is up with Bryan's hand?
I can't quite tell. There's nothing really going on over there. As we're going to see a Borderland Ranger here, likely to search out a mountain to fix Andre's mana and turn on the old Flithoof Boar if he does draw one. But I'm not quite sure what Bryan has in his hand. He's doing a nice job of holding it, and he's also not casting anything.
Hellrider 2 is also in play. There's a Thrag Tusk. I assume that must have been freshly drawn as we didn't do anything last turn.
That's going to move Bryan up to 14 now. And Thrag Tusk can do a nice job of stabilizing this board, but again, if Hellrider comes to play, things change quite a bit.
Yes. So we're looking at a hand that looks like Devil's Plate, Thrag Tusk, Huntmaster the Fells.
You see, offering up a trade here. Would you like to trade the front half of your Thrag Tusk for the back half of my Strangleroot Geist? Is what Andre is asking, and Bryan obliges.
So he's going to get his beast in a moment.
Now we are going to see a Huntmaster of the Fells join the party. We have tokens joining us. There's the beast for Bryan. Here comes the wolf for Andre, and Andre is going to move up to 22.
There you go.
So we're all kosher.
Yes.
Blood Crypt. All right, he slammed that one into play. That's the red mana.
Is this
That's
Bonfire
the 6th
for 2,
land.
maybe?
This feels
Yes.
like Bonfire for 2.
Right.
This is Bonfire for 2. Bum, 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 bum. Strangleroot Geist's going to get a little bit bigger.
It was a tragic slip to finish off the Geist.
And now the Beast can come in. Now, a little risky attack there with the Beast, just because of Hellrider.
Well, I think that if he had Hellrider, it's reasonable to assume he would have played it last turn.
Sure.
So there's some risk that it was better for him to play Huntmaster and then Hellrider definitely kills the next turn. But that seems like a pretty juicy spot to land your Hellrider, so I don't mind the risk there.
It looks like we're going to see Abundant Growth number 2 here from Andre.
Andre, assuming it's going to go on the Wolf Run.
Seems like the best target of the options in play right now, assuming he's going to cast that. Now we are going to see the Abundant Growth. And draw him a card. Draws a Rootbound Crag.
Are we going to bore him? Oh, yes, we are.
Going to bore him to death. The old Flithoof
Boom.
Boar. And we will bring up on the screen for you guys. Paying that red to give it haste. This is an all-star. Coming soon to a standard tournament near you, or today.
It's going to be happening on turn 2 a lot more than turn 6 when we got some Stomping Grounds.
That's true, as we are going to see a Huntmaster of the Fells, a card I'm sure you guys are familiar with. Flithoof Boar on the screen for you guys. M13 All-Star.
Yes, very powerful.
Just a card that it's all upside, nothing bad about it, just hasn't had a home yet. But with Stomping Ground on the way from Gatecrash, you're going to see quite a bit of play. But it doesn't look so bad right now.
There's a lot of really good draws in Andre's deck here. I mean, Mizium Mortars is quite good. Silver Heart's insane. It's got a lot of huge draws, potentially.
You're going to see a Borderland Ranger here. Hellrider was Andre's draw for the turn. He does get the mountain with the Borderland Ranger. Looks like that's what he's going to be playing for the turn. Yeah, I do agree with you. There are a lot of good draws here for him in his deck, especially some of the sideboarded cards as well. We are going to see Devil's Play take care of the Hunt Match to the Fells card you talked about.
Yep.
And be able to use that later, possibly next turn. So we're going to see Ultimate Price take care of the Flinthoof Core.
And I'm pretty sure that's a trade, you know, Andre's pretty happy with.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's got, you know, he's got Thragtusk in hand. He's got Silver Hearts in his deck.
Takes the opportunity to put Borderland Ranger right in front of that Wolf token. We see a Farseek here from Bryan. The Beast token does get through, of course. So we're at 11-11 as far as life totals are concerned. It feels like to me that Bryan, I mean, there's one, maybe two cards in hand, maybe out of gas.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has the feeling of him being on empty. Maybe he has a kill spell in his hand, but he's... Oh, here's the last one. Is
Hunt Master. Okay, so not a bad draw. But that is the last card. It's going to move up to 13. He'll get his Wolf token. And now, as you said, a lot of good draws here for Andre. Mizzium Mortar's probably being the best of the bunch.
But he has Thragtusk in hand, which is insane here.
Yeah.
Also.
We see Rootbound Crag drawn for Andre, and we're going to see that Thragtusk that you mentioned, bring him back up to 16. And one of the cards left in Andre's hand is a Crushing Vine to go along with that Hell Rider. So if Olivia does come to town, he is ready. But just a Farseek.
I'm really surprised that he cast that Farseek instead of just holding and allowing his Huntmaster to flip.
That is a bit surprising, actually. Making that into a 4/4, 2 damage, bring Andre down to 14. Just a bigger threat, too.
Yeah.
Andre playing every land that he draws because, of course, with Keswick Wolfrun in play, lands aren't necessarily a bad thing.
No, and Devil's Play in the graveyard, too.
Yeah, that too, actually. Yeah. It's kind of nice to see, you know, what I would consider this to be an aggressive deck. We have it labeled as green-red aggro, but if it does flood out, it actually has cards that it can use when it floods. Versus, you know, a lot of traditional aggro decks when they flood out, they drew 8 lands and are a little bit upset. This deck doesn't really seem to be of that opinion, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, certainly once you have Keswick Wolfrun and Devil's Play, you have a couple awesome mana sinks.
Yeah.
It also allows you to play all the powerful 5s. Whatever mixture of Thragtusk and Silver Hearts and Hellkites you want to play in this deck, you can easily justify them.
And one of those powerful 5s is coming across the table right now. Thragtusk on the attack, forcing Bryan to make a decision with that Keswick Wolfrun looming down there. Double block here. I'm curious with that. I can tell you're curious as well.
Yeah.
Curious with that block. Basically, what does it accomplish? So we see 5 mana here, and Devil's Play taking care of that. Bryan draws his card. Just passes back. So we might see that Hell Rider that's been in Andre's hand for a little while join the party here. See him slam down the land. And this is, in fact, going to be a Hell Rider.
So there's the triggers, and I assume we're going to just dump the rest of our mana into our Wolfrun here.
Yep.
Probably pumping up the Beast.
It being the less important of the two.
Yeah,
cards,
if he has a kill spell here, of course, rather him use it on the Beast.
Yep. And that's it. Bryan shows 2 lands, and Bryan scoops them up. So, Andre Selivera with his...
Selivera easily dismissing Bryan there.
His green-red deck.
Jund falling to 0 and 27, or some roughly.
In matches you've covered.
In matches I've covered, yes. But that was also a very, you know, again, it's pretty subtle, but a pretty awesome display by the red-green deck where Andre actually drew a bunch of lands. He flooded out that game.
Yep.
Was able to use all of his mana, you know, every turn, casting his big stuff and dumping into Wolfrun and Devil's Play. So, you know, like you mentioned, a lot of aggressive decks when you draw lands 6 and 7.